Well, hello and welcome back to another edition of Auburn Family News live stream. And this is where we talk about anything and everything in the spectrum of the Auburn family culture. Obviously, always heavy on the sports, but if it's orange and blue and it affects you, we talk about it here. Well, welcome back. My name is Kyle Loomis. I'm the editor of the E2C Network, which is a family of Auburn podcasts that cover a lot of sports and other topics within the Auburn spectrum. And I am thankful that you're joining me here today, whether you're watching live on our two different formats that we go on, obviously YouTube right here in front of me, and on Twitter/Periscope, whatever you call it, as well, simulcasting at the same exact time. So if you're watching live, I really appreciate that. And that's always the best way to enjoy this experience, is because you can interact, share thoughts, comments, and questions, and get your take put in here in the show. But if you are watching this on the replay, that is, we're thankful for that as well. And you can obviously leave comments and questions as you feel like you have them, and we can talk about them here on the show afterwards, and we'd be happy to address those as well. The one favor that I do ask of you is that if you are enjoying what you're watching today, if you will remember to smash that like button on YouTube and on Twitter as well. Same difference as well. You can retweet and then share it out on your streams, because it's always more enjoyable when we have lots of different perspectives in here and giving our impressions and our takes on what is actually going on in the Auburn family spectrum. A couple of final little quick announcements at the beginning of all this, like we normally do. If you haven't checked out some of our podcasts, I suggest that you do that. There's some great content out there. You get to hear other voices than just my raspy old voice, which are great individuals within the Auburn family. So you want to check some of those out. You can find it on Apple Podcasts under just search E2C Network, and you can find that there. And if it's not on a podcast app of your choice, please let me know. We will get it on there for you and make that happen for you to the best of our ability. And if you're interested in help producing content like this and keep it going for the podcast as well, you can consider joining our E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network, where you can sign up for as little as $1 a month, get yourself some exclusive access to content outside that nobody else gets within our little family, within the Auburn family, and help support this type of content as well. All right, now that all the boring stuff is out of the way, what is up, War Eagle, to you all? I am excited because we finally got a little bit of motion for it, it feels like, amongst all the fog of what's been going on. So for those of you that might be new to this stream, typically what I do is talk about several different news items within the Auburn spectrum. And obviously one of those things today, Auburn's got a basketball game here in about an hour and a half, I think against Troy, maybe? I don't know. I can't remember. But that's coming up. So if you want to talk about that, we can. Mr. Michael Floyd says, inside scoops can't be trusted. To a certain degree. My inside scoops have been 100% correct. And that's not a reflection on me at all. That's a reflection on my main source, who has been 100% correct thus far in what we're about to talk about. Auburn voices. I knew it was Troy, but then, you start questioning yourself as soon as you hear yourself saying it. You just start doubting yourself. So we can talk about that if you'd like to, and anything else. But I know as this stream was titled, and I know it's probably the biggest thing on your mind right now, is the Auburn football head coaching search. And that was the title of this stream. The coaching candidates are getting interviews, and it seems like there are a couple big names that aren't surprising, some that may not be, some that have confirmed, some that are denying at least that they've scheduled something. A lot of confusion there, even this morning. But who is actually getting an interview? Because that's what matters, right? You form a search committee to interview some candidates. So you want to kind of know who's actually going to be interviewed. And so that gives you kind of perspective on where we're at. So we can talk about some of those things. But how about this? Let's start out, and I'd love to get some perspectives on everybody. Who would you like to see get an interview from the search committee? Let's see. Michael Floyd on Twitter says, Britt Venables looks good to me. Yeah, that's a name that we've heard talked a lot about. There was like a moment early on in this process where he was one of the names that kind of made me stop and think about it for a second. And I was kind of like, it's not that it's lost its steam with me. It's just, I guess it has technically, if it was gaining steam and then it stopped. It's just kind of leveled off for me. There are other names out there that intrigue me more than anything tonight. So let me give you a little background information, too, on myself. I am a huge Gus Malzahn supporter, and I believe that Auburn made a very poor choice in firing him. And I think that right now we are trying to make the best out of a very bad situation that we should have been in. But here we are, and so that's why we're talking about this today. And I got to tell you, I think we got over one hurdle for me personally. Yeah, Michael, I know that you're on board with me, buddy. I do not doubt that you are on the same page on that. The thing that I right now am trying to figure out, and the thing that I'm happy is I did not want Mario Cristobal, and I know that's a very unpopular opinion, and I think everybody had themselves convinced that Mario Cristobal was the savior of Auburn football. I did not want that. One of my principles, and I'm going to clarify this today, is that I do not. I said yesterday, and I've said previously, that I do not want to be an Alabama acolyte. I'm going to clarify that. I do not want to be a Nick Saban acolyte, because when I say that, most people will bring up, well, Pat Dye had some Alabama history, and that's true. Different time, different scenarios. So that's why I'm clarifying my statement today. I do not want to be a Nick Saban acolyte. The other angle that people take on that is, do you not want to be successful because he's the most successful coach? And I'm like, well, of course, but that doesn't mean we have to just do exactly what they do and get their people. I still don't think Bill Clark would fit at Auburn. That's an interesting take, Michael. There's this contingent of people out there that are very big on the Bill Clark bandwagon, and it's not that I'm not. I don't know. He was asked if he had been contacted about the Auburn coaching job, and he gave one of those coach speak answers that sounds like, I just want to leave the door open. So what that means is probably, here's what you can bet. All of these names that you're hearing, at least not just speculating, but the names that keep circulating, somebody has at least probably contacted. It may not have been an Auburn official, but a booster or something like that, just to kind of gauge interest. Because we all know that the decision to fire Gus Malzahn, it's obvious now because you have to look at the facts. There was no money for the buyout because they were $30 million in the hole already. So boosters paid for this. So, you got to think logically and reality based here that the boosters are in control of this. Hall of the Topist? That's an interesting name. I can bring. So by the way, first of all, she should address this at the beginning. Since we broadcast on two different streams, we will keep doing that. But the YouTube option is obviously the more preferred one because I'm right here in front of you. Better audio quality with a microphone. At least I hope it's better audio quality. I can't tell. Sometimes it's probably off. And I can bring your comments up on screen right here, and we can address them right here in front of you. He says Bill Clark as well. I'm not against the Bill Clark thing. He just doesn't check off a lot of my boxes that I have. But I would take him over some other names, just in principle. But yeah, it's not that I'm against it, but it just doesn't excite me the way I would like it to. So the question is, who's getting interviews? So as of yesterday, I will tell you what I know in a second. But as of yesterday, reports began circulating that Steve Sarkisian, and someone, Timothy Maynor, said, I don't know if he's saying that's who I want, but he brought that name up. Steve Sarkisian, Billy Napier, Tony Elliott, Brent Venables, and Kevin Steele. Those were the 5 getting interviews. As of this morning, of the 5, now technically there's 4. Because Tony Elliott, the Clemson offensive coordinator, has also engaged in some coach speak and said, I have not scheduled an interview with anyone. So I have had my source even say that if you read between the lines there, that is not neither confirming nor denying the interest or the intention to interview there. So it was a little, I'll be honest with you, it was a little unhappy to see that maybe he was at least starting the denial process with that, because he's probably one of the ones that I'm warming up to the most. But you do have to look at it as a whole and just say, okay, it's probably just coach speak. Illinois actually made an okay hire. Shocking. I actually will be honest with you. I'm mainly an Auburn guy, so I don't know too well everybody else's hire. So you'll have to fill me in on who that was, Noah, on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, so here's the thing: like, okay hires obviously can work out, but for me, as an Auburn fan and expects us to be better than okay, I don't know that I'm good with an okay hire for a top 10 buyout, and that's something I said off in there. Just tell us who the next coach will be. This is too stressful. Oh, Brett Bielema, the old Arkansas coach. I don't know if I consider that an okay hire, but I don't know if that was. Sometimes sarcasm doesn't come across well, but maybe that, I don't know. I don't know if I consider that a good hire. Yeah, look, if I could tell you who it was going to be, I can tell you who it should be, but people get mad when I say that. It should be Gus Malzahn. We shouldn't be in this mess. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Timothy says Steve Sarkisian would be the way to go. So let's look at the trajectory here. You know, and I think it's funny if you look on Twitter, especially, people have done a good job of kind of having fun with the timeline of everything. And like day one, it was Hugh Freeze, I think is who it was. Day two, it was Mario Cristobal. Day three, it was Kevin Steele, and that's who I think it's going to be personally, to be honest with you. Yesterday it was Steve Sarkisian. Today, I'm butchering the timeline here, but that's what people were saying. So today, now the hot name is, now that Hugh Freeze is clearly not going to get an interview. I mean, my source has been 100% correct, and said that from the very get go. Hugh Freeze will not get an interview, and it's proved true. He's also nailed the people that are getting interviews, and based on the tier system that he laid out for me, it would make sense that Tony Elliott would deny a scheduled interview based on the supposed priority list that he is, where he falls on the priority list for Auburn in terms of interviews. I'll be honest with you. I get it, folks, that Steve Sarkisian is the popular name right now. I do not want to be a Nick Saban acolyte. I know that offense is impressive, and I know it looks good. But everyone knocks Gus Malzahn for eventually his offense becoming a high school offense, which was a fun little comment yesterday. Which I don't think that you were too mad at that high school offense when it was dominating people until defenses adjusted. It will be a flash in the pan at some point, and it will go away. So I guess that was my thing with the whole Mario Cristobal thing too, is like everybody's just using the recruiting to validate he's a worthy hire to this. Nah, that doesn't go for me. So I just don't want to be a Bama acolyte, or let me clarify again, a Nick Saban acolyte. So I'll say no to that as well. And I'd be interested, for those of you that, and anybody can answer this honestly, if Sarkisian, if you're okay with that hire, do you have any objections to a Art Briles hire or to a Hugh Freeze hire? I'd be interested to hear your comments on that. I don't. In terms of what I'm referring to with all three of those, I don't, because I think most of you know what I'm referring to. They've all had some outside the game issues, some probably bigger than others, but also some different time in terms of when that happened. But if you had a problem with one of them, you should have a problem with all three of them, and you should disqualify them equally because of that. Art is 60. No. I don't think age should really play a factor into this. I shouldn't say that. It should play some factor, but I don't think you should put as much weight on it as you should. Let's see. I wouldn't hire Hugh, Noah says, and I wouldn't hire Tony either. Oregon coach is out, but that should be the guy. I am so glad we didn't hire Mario Cristobal, because as I said, I don't want to be a Nick Saban acolyte. That's just my opinion. And I get the allure of it, and I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong. That's just my opinion. To Tony Elliott could be very good or very bad. So really, I'm stereotypical Auburn fan. I'll be honest with you. That's where we're at. I mean, this is not a we have chosen to not go after the hire that makes all this better, and that is Dabo Swinney. And I get it. For those of you that watch me live, you've heard me explain this before. My short list begins and ends with Dabo Swinney because that's the only one worthy of a top 10 buyout, and fixes all the problems and keeps and as an improvement. It is a obviously nothing's 100%, but that's like a 99% guarantee that it's going to be an improvement based on track record. So I do think that that's my short list, and I get that it's not a reality. Steele can prove a lot of people wrong, and that's what Michael says. And I honestly, kind of with just the backlash that he's getting, I kind of want to see it, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people with a lot of strong opinions, and I have my strong opinions too. The problem is I think that I'm willing to be wrong because if I am, Auburn wins. I don't think a lot of other people are willing to be wrong because it just means that they're wrong. Because I hope I'm wrong, honestly, in the fact that we got rid of Gus Malzahn because that means we win and we get better and we become a better program before. And I'm all for that. It's not about me. It's about Auburn. Stereotypical Auburn says yes and no. It's hard to say. Yeah, I agree. I think we're talking about the Tony Elliott hire. Hugh, I only don't like because of the NCAA stuff. Well, I mean, you could make a same case for that because of Steve Sarkisian. You know, if you've got this bad ledger of having bad behavior, then by nature they're going to keep a closer eye on you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he had NCAA issues, but just, you know, I just think if you're going to knock one of the three, Art Briles, and he was never a serious candidate, but I'm just using it to make my point, Art Briles, Hugh Freeze, and Steve Sarkisian, you should disqualify all of them equally because of bad behavior. Now, if we want to remove that and just say, okay, fine, that's even, I think then you make the case, okay, well, who's got the better off? You know, we can go to who's got the better offense. Well, they all seem to have great offenses. I lean more towards Hugh Freeze and Steve Sarkisian, so that kind of, there's no separation there. And then I get into my personal stuff. I don't want to be a Nick Saban acolyte. So that kind of eliminates Steve Sarkisian. But Hugh Freeze is not a reality, so that's what happened. All right, let's see. I don't want to keep up with some of the questions. I got really behind yesterday on questions. I know that probably frustrated many of you. I love watching you, but Bear Bryant is more likely to coach Auburn than Dabo. And honestly, no, I when I say that, I hope you heard me say that I understand that that's likely not a reality. But if we are Auburn and we are who we say we are, why are we not going after the best? I mean, and by that logic, why are we not going after Nick Saban? But I don't want to be a Nick Saban acolyte or Nick Saban, so that's just me. So what do we know? We know that we know Kevin Steele is getting an interview. If you need to understand that and be okay with it. Kevin Steele's getting an interview, so that's a guarantee. It looks to be like Steve Sarkisian is going to get that's pretty much a guarantee an interview as well. I don't have any reason to not suspect that Billy Napier is going to get an interview as well. And then I don't know that I put much stock in the Brent Venables, even though they're reporting it. You know, you always have to take the reports with a grain of salt. So I do think that Brent Venables is a higher potential than most. But I kind of put him and Tony Elliott in the same category. They've got other things to focus on today specifically. Let's wait next week. I will say this, and I'm going to continue to, and I know this is the word that everybody loves. My source, who has been 100% right thus far, has said that last night and tonight will probably be the last quiet nights in terms of this craziness for a long, well, not for a long time, for the next couple of days. It's going to really start ramping up after. And that makes sense, right? Because all of these candidates that are potentially getting interviews, all of them are in championship games or just finished them up. Billy Napier as an option has finished his up last night. Is that today? I can't remember. Either way. Sunday, I would suspect by Sunday afternoon, even if it's still kind of quiet, things are going to start ramping up. Appreciate the like, by the way. And as always, I should remember to say that if you are enjoying what you're watching, please do make sure you smash the like button. It does help the stream out to get more people part of the conversation. So I do appreciate that, whoever did that. Does Brent not want the hot seat? If you're asking in terms of does he not want to be in a hot seat? From what I understand, rumors-wise, he's got some skeletons in his closet, and so it's kind of like you might almost throw him into the Sarkisian, Hugh Freeze, Art Briles category, that the NCAA keeps an eye on them a little bit closer. I don't know of Tony Elliott having any. That's why I kind of put Tony Elliott higher on my list. So that's why I said earlier when the report came that he was denying anything scheduled or contacting anybody. I'm kind of a little disappointed by that because right now, and again, unpopular opinion here, the best of a bad situation that we should never have been in is Kevin Steele. And I know that sucks for so many people to hear that, but I promise you, so far from what I've seen, that is the best of a bad situation. I have moved, Tony Elliott started moving up my list, or moving into a list that was very small anyway yesterday for me. And he's moved up further since then. So right now, that is my go-to is Kevin Steele and Kevin Steele and Tony Elliott right now, because I do not want Steve Sarkisian. And in fact, I've said this to several people. If we get past the Steve Sarkisian hump here, I'll settle down a lot better and just kind of accept whoever else it is, because I just don't want to be a Nick Saban acolyte. Gus looks good right now. Well, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, right? We'll find out if it was a good decision or not. I mean, I don't think it was, but that's time will tell. And like I said from the very beginning, if my opinion of it not being the right decision proves false, Auburn wins. So I'm happy about that. Nothing to lose there on that front. But yeah, so that's, I would say the 5 that you saw yesterday are likely people to be interviewed and will be getting interviews, but that doesn't mean more won't come. I have said, and my source has confirmed this. I wish I got to find a different word for that, because everybody gets triggered by that word, and people want me to reveal the source. I have not been given permission by that. You can only take me at my word that he's been 100% correct thus far. And I even told the person, I was like, don't ever let me question you again. My thing with Kevin Steele would be you get 5 to 10 years out of him. So that's the conundrum, Timothy, right? That is. It's a very big conundrum. And I mean, that's what we're assuming, right? Maybe he has a revitalization and if he gets the head coaching job and this is like his comeback, and maybe he, I know, what is he, 62, 63? So that means if he's there 10 years. So personally, at this year, I'd love for a coach to see 10 years, because we haven't made that happen in decades, which is a shame. And my big thing is stability of a program, which is why I even with that notion, Timothy, I put more stock in the Kevin Steele stand, because it protects what little stability the program has left after the poor decision to hire Gus Malzahn, because what that does is it almost guarantees that you keep some of the better pieces that are already there in place, and I think you'll move forward better with that for the next couple of years, but when you're probably already going to be making coaching changes because of this, because I do think that we've kind of forced ourselves into a Tennessee situation, unfortunately. Did Kevin Steele pitch Mike Bobo as OC? I need to ask Arel. I need to ask my source if they know if that's happened. That's a hot topic out there. I've heard the rumors, obviously, but I think it's always like I wish I could go back and trace where the rumor started from, and then I could kind of make a decision on if it's valid or not. I don't put much stock in that, but I could be wrong, and I think that Mike Bobo, I think it'd be okay at this point. Everybody wants, if Kevin Steele comes for him, to get Art Briles back in there. Like I said earlier, with those people with the dark past, I'm kind of, I'm more lenient because as a Christian, I believe that we should be forgiving and give people second chances. But I don't know that I necessarily want to be the one to give that second chance. That doesn't mean I don't. It's kind of like I'm sitting on the fence. And I know that's not a hot take or anything. It's just kind of like, watch Saban hire Gus. It'd be funny. It certainly would. It'd be hilarious. It'd be sad for us, but it'd be hilarious. Arel says meh. I don't. If you're saying meh to the Mike Bobo pitch, I don't know. I will ask my source when we get off this today if he thinks that it was part of Kevin Steele's pitch. I don't honestly think Kevin Steele has made a pitch one way or the other in terms of an offensive coordinator yet. I think his biggest thing was the way he conducted himself in this recruiting class, holding it together and improving it, which honestly was probably an easier thing to do than we thought it was because of how bad it had fallen the last couple of weeks. But I was fairly impressed with, obviously, the way he conducted himself at the press conference after early signing day, and the way he kind of held things together as a program. And I think that's a thing in his favor. And I think his biggest pitch is that I'm going to keep my defensive staff together. So that maintains that. And then everybody's biggest gripe, which has been the offense, though, then we can make a change. So if Mike Bobo is that, I'm at this point I'm willing, because I don't really have an opinion out there that's solid about who should be an offensive coordinator, unless Tony Elliott is the guy, and then I would imagine he'd probably have someone within the Clemson coaching tree come up and be his offensive coordinator. Him not having pitched makes more sense. I think so. I don't think that pitch has happened personally. It just, if you're asking my personal opinion with no information whatsoever, but again, I will ask. I don't think that has happened. Just trying to logically play all this stuff out in my head, I don't think that's happened. Noah says, I read a lot on Art, and there has been independent investigation. He is cleaner than Hugh, and I wouldn't hire Art because of his past. I wouldn't hire him because he's old and offense has changed so much. I don't think age should disqualify him from his ability to change an offense. Anybody can change, right? And so let me here. Look, I'm going to go down a path here that I know some of y'all don't like, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let me tackle the whole Gus didn't change argument. That's a fallacy. So Gus, for probably up until the departure of Lashley, which I believe was year 4, I think, because I think then was 2 years of Chip Lindsey, 1 year of what's his face, went to Florida State after that, and then obviously this year with Chad Morris. Which I don't think you should knock Chad Morris for, because that's not a fair statement in a COVID-19 year. So I understand on the outside surface looking in that it looks like Gus never changed, but we I should never say y'all, I should say we as a collective, because we're the Auburn fan. We clamored, said we wanted Gus to step back and give the reins to someone. He did that, gave it to Chip Lindsey, had a little bit of success, and then it fell away. But then as soon as things don't work, we blame it on Gus. And then and when that wasn't working, he took a little bit of reins back with that young OC. I can't even remember his name now. And then y'all weren't happy with that again. I gotta stop saying y'all. We weren't happy with that again. And then he gave it back to Chad Morris, and we were impatient. So it's just like a no-win scenario for Gus. That's what I'm saying. So I don't like the argument of somebody can't change, because it's always just your opinion, in my opinion, which you can take there or leave it. So stereotypical Auburn fan says the Billy Napier candidate is the most proven of these candidates. So let me ask Kenny Dillingham. Thank you. Sorry, I'll come back to that. Kenny Dillingham. Thank you, Dilly, because I hated that was going to be said a lot when he was there. Billy Napier is the most proven out of these candidates. Help me understand that one, stereotypical Auburn fan. I don't know how being as a head coach. Okay, so just on principle as a head coach, sure, yes, but in a conference that is nowhere near sniffing the Power Five. And personally, I just don't like the argument either that, well, if you can win there, you can win anywhere. That's not the case. Not the case at all. Because if that was the case, then let me think of, hold on. Jim McElwain, who was successful at Colorado State, would have been successful at Florida. And he wasn't. I mean, that's just one example, though, so I understand. Whoever we hire, A.U. Robinson says, no more screens. I love the screens. I just think they should have been utilized at a different time. And I think people often would not appreciate what that was doing because of, and I get the nauseating effect of seeing it happen, but the amount of times that the screen set something up that was highly successful was pretty crazy if you really go back and look at it. Noah says, I'm a Gopher fan. Oh, I didn't know we had a Minnesota fan here. Oh, that hurts, man. But I always liked Auburn. I really hope you guys get this figured out. Noah, we do too, man. But look, I'm glad that we're providing entertainment for you, right? I even had, who was it yesterday? An Ole Miss fan who was very complimentary of our channel here. So thank you so much for that. If you're watching today, sir, live or on the replay, you were very kind. That we really appreciate kind thoughts like that. And he was like, yeah, y'all are providing me some great entertainment value, and that's what we're here for, right? The screen is my favorite play in football, but everyone has their taste. Yeah, I just think it was used in a way that I don't think people appreciated, and it was more successful than people, not it alone, but what it set up. So yeah. All right. No, you're very kind, sir. I don't think so, but thank you so much. If you had to head out, goodbye. I hope we'll see you here again soon, because love chatting with you. You've had some great comments on here. Anyway, so in terms of interviews, so that's the 5 I think will get interviews, even though one of them, Tony Elliott, has denied that he has set up anything. That's my hope that he actually does get one. And in fact, when you see people like actually confirming or denying, it kind of leads you down that path of, well, kind of leads to think. I'm kind of leaning towards that Bill Clark's going to get an interview, because I think it will satisfy a lot of people if he gets one. But based on the list that I have been shown and the tier system that I have been shown, everything makes sense so far, because what I've revealed to you is that Kevin Steele is, whether you want it to be or not, the clear number 1. That's not just my opinion. That's what this source is telling me, who has been 100% correct thus far. Kevin Steele is the clear number 1 and is getting that interview, followed by Steve Sarkisian and Billy Napier, which is what we found out. And then the other candidates that you are hearing rumors and maybe substantiated or not that are getting interviews, that would be Brent Venables, Tony Elliott, maybe even Bill Clark. They are on that list, but further down in terms of priority. But that my source even said that, those type of things could move up, barring how things go. So I really, I wasn't surprised by the ones because of what was laid out before me. So I think that really this is what we're having. And honestly, whereas yesterday, everything exploded from Mario Cristobal, this is almost the most boring day of the Auburn search. Just like the sources said, that he said that last night and tonight was going to be your last quiet days. On that note, all right. How about this? I know everybody says I want 2 things. I want number 1. Give me like a number 1 in your answer. Number 1, who do you want as the head coach? Number 2, who do you think is going to be the head coach? Because that's 2 different scenarios there, right? Because one is your preference and one is you're using logic in that. Who do I want? And again, when I say this, I know it's going to make y'all's eyes roll. Who do I want as the head coach? Dabo Swinney. Who do I think is going to be the head coach currently? And I've had that confirmed again. It's Kevin Steele. And so I think we should all be preparing for that in the very, 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 very near future. So if anybody has some opinions on that, I'd love to hear number 1, who you want. Number 2, who do you think? And if you want a third one, if you think somebody else is going to get an interview that has not been named, please share that as well, because I always love to hear hot takes. Excuse me, I had to get a drink there real quick. All right, well, while I wait for anybody to respond to that question, if anybody feels like sharing, let me tell you about a couple things. Some are coming in right now, so I'll address those in just a second. Obviously, the basketball game will be starting in about 1 hour for Auburn. Like I said, we're a podcast network, and I do Inside the Jungle, which is our Auburn men's basketball show, where we break down the action, the games, and news, and all that stuff. So that will be coming out tomorrow with the breakdown of the game against Troy. So if you're not subscribed, please do so on an Apple Podcast. But yeah, stereotypical Auburn fan. He's kind of like, I can get on line with his thing. He says, number 1, Tony is who he thinks, or who he wants as the coach. Number 2, who he thinks it's going to be is Kevin Steele. I agree with that. Even though I said Dabo, I'm just telling you who I want. If I want Gus, but that's less likely to happen than Dabo is at this point because of the bridge that has been burnt at this point. But yeah, I do agree with that stereotypical Auburn fan, that line of thinking, and I at this point am happy as I can be with the bad situation of Kevin Steele and Tony, and I've really kind of like taken a step down from my upset level. Like, I've been upset about this for 5 days, but finally I'm just kind of like, okay, all right, we got to make the best of this situation at this point, and I think that we will hopefully do that. If my opinion about the situation has been proven wrong on all that. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I know this is a lot shorter than we typically do it, but thank y'all so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube if you're not, so you'll know when we go live, because we do these at random times. Appreciate y'all being here, and War Eagle. YouTube folks, I know that's like, I hope most of y'all have learned by now that typically I stay around for y'all a little bit longer. In fact, I stayed around like 30 minutes longer yesterday than I intended to. I always like get on here and I think I'm gonna go for 15 minutes, and then 30 minutes goes around and I'm still talking. Yeah, I don't really stay on longer for any real reason other than I have to turn one off before the other. And I just got to thinking, you guys are really growing over here and being very supportive of this. So I was like, well, I'll give them a little incentive to hang around, and think about, just stay here for just a minute. Not that I say anything that I don't say on Twitter, but it gives you an opportunity maybe to have your questions focused on a little bit more, which the Twitter folks were really quiet today, which kind of tells you something about the coaching search, doesn't it? It tells you we've kind of reached a point of stability in terms of where people's emotions are at on this. Let's see. We got some more choices in here. Timothy says he wants Steve. Number 2 thinks it'll be Lane. You think it's going to be Lane. Here, okay, so let me say Orel's here first, and then I'll come back to that. Orel says, 1, Bill Belichick is who he thinks it'll be, or who he wants it to be, excuse me. I got that backwards. And number 2, he thinks it'll be Still. Well, at least we're on the same reality stage, right? You're giving the Bill Belichick angle. I'm taking the Dabo Sweeney angle. Let me come back to what Timothy said. He wants Steve, but thinks it'll be Lane. Lane has never been has never really been an option as of this moment, based on what I'm being told, which has been 100% correct thus far. That can change today. Here's why I would not be upset with a Lane Kiffin hire. Because, again, I don't really fault for his past sins and stuff like that in terms of his character and stuff, especially since I've seen some things that he's kind of said and written since that time, which shows a little growth in humility, at least on paper. I do think that you can't knock him for that if you're going to consider people like Art Briles, Hugh Freeze, or Steve Sarkisian. The thing that I love and the thing that makes me feel like he'd embrace being an Auburn person is that he just sticks it in the craw of Nick Saban whenever he gets a chance to do so. And I love that. Like, that is hilarious to me. However, he has not shown the propensity to stay anywhere anytime soon, and I'm a fan of stability, so that's kind of why, like, as much as I love that, it kind of evens it out for me, you know what I'm saying? I love it, O'Reilly. Angels in the outfield. It could happen. Hey, I'm on board with it. Why? O'Reilly, I will say this. I am more in line with you in terms of your thinking and who you want, if you're being serious, because you're at least shooting for an improvement. Everybody else the logic that they're not improvements in my opinion. This is a hot take here. Sarkisian, is just another Malzahn, an offensive coach that just barely better than average. I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I think that's a little harsh. I think the similarities between him and Malzahn, the situation, are 100% true. I think you're 100% right on that. Just barely being better than average. I mean, have you seen the offensive numbers they're putting? That's the thing with Sarkisian. It's not that I want, or that I'm not denying that he's got great stats to back up his hire. I just don't want to be a big Nick Saban acolyte. Don't want it. So, I really, like I said, if we can get past that, I'll be okay with this situation. I think I'll be at peace with it. But right now, I just don't want to see that happen. Bill Clark is my pick. And as I said, he is not confirmed to get an interview yet. He's denied it. Of course, he's denied it in coach speak, so that kind of makes you think them things, right? I know he's on a list in terms of like, he's like on the lowest tier in terms of like you're not actually on a tier. You're on an honorable mention, which means a booster has probably contacted him to gauge interest. That's what I take out of that. So I'm not a fan of restarts right now, and that's what this would be, but I think you could do a lot worse in terms of a restart. So I will say to you, it's better. I can't say it's better than a Sarkisian pick, but I'm just really not a fan of having him as a thing. All right, folks, I think that's going to wrap my thoughts of today. I think we've done enough here. Like I said, if you haven't, please consider subscribing. For a couple of reasons, because I don't do these on a regularly scheduled basis. Because of work schedule, I can't always do them on every day as well. And sometimes there's just not enough news. Right now, there's plenty of news. So the best way that you'll know when we go live here is to be subscribed and have that notification bell marked, because it will send you an update when we go live. And that way you can come in if you're available to do so. And you can always just watch the replay. But I love seeing your smiling faces here, because hearing different perspectives is always great. Even if we disagree 100%, because that's what makes great conversation, right? So if you'll do that for me, that's a huge thing. We've had some new faces today and some great opinions on this thing, and hopefully we'll start getting some information tomorrow afternoon that gets a little bit. I'll leave you with this tidbit. Maybe this is your incentive for being here on YouTube as opposed to anywhere else. My source, who has been 100% correct thus far, you can believe me or not on that, has said this thing gets wrapped up by Wednesday if everything goes the way it's supposed to, because that's when they would like to have that done. So that's why I think things will start ramping up. I think you'll see a little bit of excitement tomorrow, Monday, the quiet before the storm on Tuesday, and then maybe Wednesday or even Tuesday, maybe just Thursday. Within that 3-day window, we'll have a head coach. And boy, are the opinions going to start flying. It's going to be fun. All right, thank y'all so much for being here. War Eagle to you all. Even if you're not an Auburn fan, War Eagle to you. And we'll be back again with you soon.